So it is Sunday, the 4th of January, which means tomorrow is the first Monday of 2026. And I wanted to shoot a quick video on this frosty Manchester day about how to actually hit your goals in 2026, because tomorrow a lot of goals are about to be started, and probably in about 4 to 6 weeks' time a lot of these goals are going to be abandoned or kind of forgotten about. And here's why that happens, right? So during the last 2 weeks, a lot of people have had very different conditions. They are thinking ahead at the future. They're out of the weeds of a lot of things, and they're feeling very different. They're feeling very ambitious, and they're feeling like this is a fresh start. This is a new start, So they sit down and they're setting their goals, and they're feeling ambitious, and they're setting their goals really, really high. And most of the time when they're doing this, what they're actually doing is they're spreading themselves very, very thin, because right now they are feeling very, very positive. They're feeling very, very ambitious, and they're setting all these goals. But like I said, they're actually spreading themselves very, very thin. They've got a load of things that they now should be doing every single day, every single week, a huge amount of expectations on themselves. And usually what happens 4 to 6 weeks in, it's too hard to be able to keep up with, and a lot of people just kind of resort back to exactly what they were doing before once they've got back into the weeds of everything. The reason for this is because we set all these goals, spread ourselves thin, and then we re-enter back into the same conditions that were producing the same results last year, right? Because we're thinking so much on the outcome of where we're trying to get to, but we don't give any thought to the conditions that every single day and every single week we're living within to be able to make those desired outcomes actually become a reality. There's a really good quote, which is, we do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And I think in this video that can easily be conditions as well, right? We don't rise to the level of our goals that we set, we fall to the levels of conditions that we create for ourselves, because eventually at every single point we are going to lose motivation or lose this kind of energy to kind of, or the discipline to be able to really, really push, and we are always going to resort back to our conditions. So instead of setting these huge goals, spreading yourself thin and falling back into the exact same conditions, having to use discipline for about 4 to 6 weeks before you resort back to the conditions that you're currently in, this year, do it differently. Still set big, ambitious goals. Set the big, ambitious goals, have a clear timeline on where you're trying to get to, understand what it is, and reverse engineer it. Do everything you're meant to do, reverse engineer it, understand how you actually need to get to that goal. But then ask yourself as well, who do you need to be to actually make that goal a reality? Like, who do you actually need to be? Do you need to be creative? Do you need to be disciplined? Who do you need to be able to make that goal a reality? And then the final question, what are the conditions that need to be present every single day, every single week in your life to be able to make you being that version of yourself almost effortless? And then the real work that you need to focus on isn't, keeping this goal in mind necessarily and all of that. It's making sure that you're sticking to the conditions and you're keeping the conditions right in your days and your weeks, so you're naturally being the person that you need to be able to achieve your goals. And often when you do this, it works very differently to, when you're just kind of setting huge goals and loads of different goals. It works the opposite way around. You set one meaningful goal and you look at where can I actually simplify the process to this and eliminate a lot of the things that would potentially be draining your energy or keeping your focus and attention scattered, so you can really, really focus in one direction and absolutely crush it. So a couple of things that this is probably going to require when you're thinking about it in this way. Number one is doing less but way more effective inputs, because a lot of the time when you really look at it, the conditions that create bad outcomes are being overworked, too much decision fatigue, all of these things. When we can really bring things down and focus on a few high leverage tasks, we're almost always going to be working much, much better. Second thing is looking at how do we protect your energy, because your energy is one of the biggest currencies that we've got to actually be able to put in and pay for this goal to actually be achieved, right? So how do we protect your energy? A lot of that is going to come down to having constraints around your business. So a constraint might be how much you work every single day. A constraint might be when you start work or when you stop work. And another one is boundaries, setting boundaries. If there's someone else in your life that's kind of very good at changing the conditions that you're currently living in, having that conversation and setting that boundary with them. So again, you can protect the conditions that you need this year to be able to make your goals a reality. So if you're wondering, a couple of mine, I try and keep work to 6 hours a day. Now, I'm not always perfect at this, but it's really, really important for me, because the biggest problem that I have is I can work very hard and for a very long time, and I enjoy it. But the condition that ruins my goals is when I've overworked for a couple of days in a row, and I actually find that my energy, my creativity, and even my kind of like emotions and outlook really start to drop. And that is not the conditions that I can make my goals a reality in at all, right? So actually, containing my work in 6 hours a day, tracking how much I work and keeping it to 6 hours a day, most days, is really, really, really important as a condition for me to be able to actually sustainably be able to be at my best. It's also, by the way, a really good way of being more productive as well. When you don't have the constraint of how much you work every day, you will allow yourself to do things that aren't that useful for your business. You will allow yourself to be slow, procrastinate. When you can only have 6 hours of work a day, it forces you to almost like spend those hours. It's almost like you've paid for a, if you've got paid 6 hours for an employee, you kind of spend those hours very, very wisely. It's very useful. So I suggest doing that either way. And all of that comes down to protecting my energy and not overworking, right? That's the biggest thing. When I'm overworked, when I have really, really low energy, I'm not able to do the things consistently that I need to do. That's really interesting because, like I said, a lot of the time people will set too many goals and spread themselves too thin. Most of the time that is going to be the worst condition that we can possibly be in to actually achieve one of these goals. Another one for me is learn and read every single day. A huge value of mine and something that I need is creativity. And the raw ingredients and materials that I'm putting into my mind every single day is really, really important. So time is always going to be created for me to be able to learn and read every day. And another one is meditation every single day as well. Time is always going to be created in the morning and protected for meditation. It really helps me stay neutral throughout the day, notice things before reacting and being able to choose my actual reaction to it, which is very, very important for any goal that you possibly have. Another one for me is thinking time. And actually, if I'm honest, this is probably one that I created much time for, not enough time for last year, compared to other years. But one of the most useful things for me, that again, it helps me be inspired, helps me kind of course correct, and helps me keep my vision strong, is constantly having thinking time. So time where, usually for me, it's sitting down with a cigar, notebook in front of me, but nothing necessarily that I need to write in it. And I just kind of sit there and think, and then I kind of eventually end up with a bit of an overview of everything, my direction and everything else. And sometimes, when you look at it in isolation, it doesn't look that useful. It's very nice, it's meditative, but it's not so useful. But on the bigger, in the bigger picture, it really, really does seem to be, because it's very, very easy. I find, at least, these are all mine, right? I'm not even saying you need to use these are just mine. I find it's very, very easy to kind of get caught up in the day-to-day and never be able to kind of like poke your head out of the weeds and kind of remember where you're going, what this is all for, and making sure that you're making decisions in line with the bigger vision, not necessarily just what would give you an outcome now. Another one is inspiring conversations and getting around people in the same game or the same journey as me consistently. This is huge. This is something that I invest a lot of money into, and I will continue to in 2026, even more so. When I go to masterminds and I pay to, fly to another country, spend some time with some people and get to masterminds, the energy that gives me, the inspiration that gives me, the ideas that it gives me is like, I was about to say worthless, but that's not the word, is it? It's priceless. Kind of means the same thing, but totally different meanings. Is priceless for the goals that I have, right? Even if I'm not going there to learn a specific thing, it's just the environment that it gets me in, the life that it creates for me. That's just kind of what I want to do with my life. I like traveling around, meeting people and stuff. Is very, very, very well worth it. So again, something that in 2026 is going to be high on the priority list, and all of these help you make decisions better as well, right? Frequently changing environments and routine. This might sound like a bit of a strange one, and it's only a small one. This is, again, for me personally, I am very, 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 very routine oriented. I am very good at creating a routine and sticking to it day in, day out, and I don't even get bored of it because I feel kind of like safe in the routine. The routine is the thing that makes me feel good. But eventually I get very, very, maybe I do get bored of it, because eventually I get very tired of the same routine, but I also almost feel trapped. I feel trapped in the same routine, I should say. I don't need to stick to it, but I feel trapped in the same routine. And again, it's not very, oh my God, I think it's snowing. It's actually snowing, guys. You've just caught the first snow of 2026. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but it's now snowing. We're sitting here recording a video snowing. Anyway, that's exciting. What was I saying? Yeah, I maybe I do get bored of it because I get very tired of it, but I feel trapped within it. So one of the big things that I need to do this year, and this is kind of a new one that I've identified that I haven't stuck to up until now, is getting out of my usual routines and breaking them. So something like this, right? If I have an idea for a YouTube video that I want to do, going out and thinking, where could this be cool to film it, and going there and filming it instead of just doing it in the office, meeting someone that I want to meet in the weekday or something like that. And one more that I haven't been historically great at, but I know that it's important, and again, this is why it's written down here for 2026, is keeping very, very tidy spaces. I'm very good at kind of just ignoring it and eventually having quite messy spaces where I'm working and living and stuff and just kind of getting on with it. But I am aware that it is not where I do my best thinking, my best work, where I feel the best, and even on an identity level, it feels wrong, right? So one of the things that I've written as a condition for 2026 that I need to create to be able to be at my best is I need to keep all of my own personal spaces where I live, where I work, in impeccable condition that a client could walk in at any moment and I would not feel any shame for the condition that it is in. I know that is an important condition for me to be able to be working at my best and to feel at my best as well. So, like I said, they are a couple of conditions that are really, really important for me. There's more specific ones, specific, must do this and should start at this time and everything else, but they're more broader ones, conditions that I need to stick to be able to make my goals a reality in 2026. the main point of this video that I want you to kind of walk away with, and hopefully some of those can inspire you to think for your own, is you've now set your goal. You know, I don't need to tell you to do that. Like, you've got a goal. You should have had a goal before 2020 New Year's Eve as well, but you've got a goal anyway. You already had that. Don't just think about what do I need to do and what is the goal. Do not spread yourself too thin, because energy is one of the biggest kind of currencies towards getting any of these goals to actually manifest. But ask yourself, what are the daily and weekly conditions that you need to create? And that is in your mind, in your environment, in your body, in your soul, whatever it might be, that will make you naturally be the person you need to be to achieve those goals.